It was the spring of 2003 when 11 people, organized through the Union College Outing Club, entered Oneskathaw Cave, located in Albany County, New York. Of the 11, 7 were enrolled students at the college, and the other 4 were friends accompanying the group. Most members of the party possessed prior experience in cave exploration. 2 of the leaders already knew the specific layout and features of Oneskathaw Cave. The group had secured the required permission to enter the cave on that date. Every participant wore a protective helmet equipped with a functional headlamp. Spare batteries for the lamps were carried by the party. Clothing consisted of multiple warm layers selected to match the steady cool temperature that prevails inside caves. These preparations aligned with the standard requirements applied to trips of this type. The group passed through the entrance at approximately 9 o'clock in the evening. Beyond the entrance, the ordinary cycle of day and night no longer exists. The sole source of light is the beam generated by the headlamp attached to each helmet. The party advanced through the available passages for a period of roughly 2 hours. They covered a distance of approximately 3,000 feet from the entrance and reached the practical terminus of the section under exploration. After completing that portion of the trip, they reversed course and started the return toward the surface. Upon reaching a small chamber situated about 1,000 feet from the entrance, the group discovered that the onward passage had become completely filled with water. A sump is a segment of cave passage in which water occupies the full height from the floor to the ceiling so that no continuous airspace remains above the water surface. Any movement that disturbs the floor or walls typically causes silt to rise and render the water opaque. The precise length of the submerged section cannot be measured while remaining on the dry side of the obstruction. Attempts to pass a sump by holding the breath and swimming without independent breathing equipment are made only by individuals who have received specialized training and who carry appropriate support gear, and even those attempts carry a documented risk of drowning. A group of 11 people equipped with ordinary surface clothing and headlamps does not enter a sump for testing, for seeking help, or for any other purpose. One of the leaders moved forward far enough to examine the flooded section and confirmed that the water filled the entire cross-section of the passage with no remaining air gap. The only available course of action was to withdraw into the chamber and remain there. The chamber measured 20 feet along its longest dimension, 4 feet across its width, and 3 feet from floor to ceiling. Standing in a fully upright posture was impossible for every person present. Maintaining a kneeling position with the head held clear of the ceiling was also impossible for most of the group. The total floor surface available equaled 80 square feet. When that area is divided among 11 individuals, the result is approximately 7 square feet allocated to each person. All activity was limited to small adjustments of posture while remaining in continuous physical contact with at least one neighboring body. Continuous walking or independent pacing could not be performed. The air temperature inside a cave remains nearly constant across seasons and corresponds closely to the long-term average surface temperature of the surrounding geographic region. Direct contact between the human body and the rock surface produces continuous conductive heat loss. Clothing that has become damp or wet increases the speed of that heat transfer. Extended periods of physical inactivity further reduce the body's internal heat production. The combined effect of these factors makes progressive hypothermia the principal physiological hazard. Hypothermia first diminishes the precision of mental processes and later impairs muscular function and the maintenance of consciousness. Members of the group collected every item of food that had been carried into the cave and divided the total quantity into equal shares. They also gathered the dry layers of clothing still available and redistributed those layers so that the individuals experiencing the greatest heat loss received additional insulation. The 11 people then positioned themselves in close bodily contact in order to transfer and conserve heat among the group. The complete strategy consisted of remaining inside the chamber, preserving warmth through shared contact, and waiting until the water level altered. After the party had arranged itself, the water level in the passage continued to increase. The rise persisted for a measured interval of approximately 2 hours. No measurable rainfall had been recorded in the local area during the preceding hours. No controlled release of water had occurred from any dam located upstream of the cave. The volume of water that entered the system did not originate from the stream that normally occupies portions of the cave passages. Once the 2-hour period of rising ended, the level stabilized and held steady. Thereafter, the water began a slow recession. An additional interval of 3 hours was required before the water had fallen far enough to reopen a continuous route of travel through the section that had previously been submerged. At 4:15 a.m., the entire group of 11 individuals walked out through the entrance into the external darkness. The total duration of the underground stay was approximately 7 hours. Of that total, roughly 5 hours were spent confined inside the chamber. No member of the party attempted to cross the sump by swimming. No physical injuries were sustained by any participant. No external rescue team was summoned or required to enter the cave. After emerging, the group changed into dry clothing and traveled to a nearby establishment that remained open 24 hours a day. The individual serving as trip leader paid the full cost of the meal consumed there. While the group remained inside the chamber, the conversation covered ordinary subjects that included references to family members. On one occasion, the party performed a version of the song "Happy Birthday" directed toward one member whose calendar birthday fell near the date of the trip. The person directing the trip was DJ Huey, who simultaneously held the position of president of the Union College Outing Club. In statements made after the event, he described the flooding as highly unusual on the grounds that the water had entered the cave from a source distinct from the ordinary stream. The precise origin of the sudden accumulation of water has never been identified with certainty. Contemporary records state only that water arrived from an unspecified source during a period that produced neither rainfall nor any dam discharge. One explanatory hypothesis advanced at the time suggested that a residential well located near the cave possessed an inadequately sealed casing, and that water from that well might have migrated through fractures in the rock and into the cave passages. That hypothesis was never confirmed by any subsequent formal investigation. The individual responsible for the care of the cave indicated that an inquiry into the cause would be conducted. No later published accounts supplied a definitive determination. The water rose without any corresponding surface weather event, remained elevated for a measurable span of hours, then receded, and the cave system itself has yielded no further information concerning the mechanism. The party had completed every preparatory action customarily regarded as necessary for a trip of this character. Formal permission had been obtained. Leadership familiar with the cave was present. Helmets, functioning lamps, spare batteries, and suitable clothing had been provided. Those measures did not prevent the passage from becoming sealed by water. They did enable every member of the group to remain capable of coordinated behavior until the water level changed spontaneously, and to leave the cave without injury and without the intervention of any external rescue organization. March 29, 2003, a group of cavers entered a limestone cave system for what had been arranged as a standard organized trip. Mark Engel had planned the outing and divided the participants into two separate teams so that different sections of the passages could be covered at the same time. Kevin Dunleavy, who was then 41 years old and already an experienced spelunker, took responsibility for the second team and led them deeper into the system. The party carried the usual equipment, including spare lights, and the members possessed years of practice moving through confined spaces. They reached a junction point where a narrow side passage branched off toward the rear of the cave. That route was reported to lead to a chamber called the Shoemaker Room. Dunleavy himself had never traveled that particular section, yet other explorers had told him the side trip would require only 10 to 20 minutes. One member said, "It is only 10 to 20 minutes, we will be right back." The expectation was that the group would return to the junction without delay. At the junction, the decision was made to leave the packs behind. All emergency gear, backup supplies, and tools remained at that location. 3 members of the party concluded they had seen enough of the cave for the day and volunteered to stay with the packs while the others proceeded. Dunleavy said, "Leave the packs here, we will check the side passage quickly." Dunleavy and the remaining 3 continued into the side passage. Almost at once, the character of the passage altered. The walls closed in, requiring the cavers first to crouch and then to crawl on hands and knees. The rock surfaces became more irregular, with loose stones and formations that appeared unstable. Despite the change, they continued forward, drawn by the prospect of reaching the Shoemaker Room. They soon encountered an 18-inch high crawl that forced them onto their stomachs. Directly above this crawl, a collection of wedged rocks formed a makeshift ceiling. These rocks consisted of breakdown material stones that had fallen from higher levels and become jammed together. They were not part of the original solid limestone structure. Breakdown formations are recognized in caving as inherently unstable. They can remain in place for extended periods and then shift or collapse when subjected to vibration contact or minor disturbance. One after another, the 4 men worked their way under the wedged rocks. The space was so restricted that Dunleavy had to remove his helmet in order to pass. When he finally emerged on the far side, the passage terminated at a blank wall. There was no Shoemaker Room and no larger chamber waiting beyond. One of them said, "This is a dead end, there is nothing here." The side trip had ended in a dead end. The group now faced the necessity of reversing direction through the same crawl. Traveling backward through a tight passage increases both difficulty and risk because body orientation and leverage change. As Dunleavy turned to lead the return, he obtained a clearer view of the breakdown mass above the crawl. The rocks rested on one another in a precarious arrangement that could give way at any moment. The 3 companions remained behind him in the dead-end section, with the crawl as their sole exit route. Dunleavy was approximately halfway through the crawl when a rock weighing roughly 50 pounds, nearly 30 kilograms, shifted under the vibrations created by his movement. The stone slid free with a grinding noise and dropped directly onto his upper legs, pinning him in the narrowest portion of the passage. He found himself lying on his back in the 18-inch space, unable to advance, retreat, or raise his torso. The rock was so tightly wedged against the surrounding stones that it could not be displaced by hand. Dunleavy called out, "The rock is on my legs, I cannot move." The 3 cavers trapped behind him registered the full extent of the problem. Their only path out was blocked by their immobilized leader, who was now injured. Dunleavy called back, "Try to move the rock." They advanced as far as the confined space allowed and applied force, but the boulder remained fixed in place. One of them said it will not budge at all. Tools would be required either to fracture the stone or to create lifting points. A hammer could break it into smaller pieces, and webbing could be used to establish purchase, yet every item of that kind sat in the packs left at the junction completely out of reach. Dunleavy managed to call out to the three who had remained at the junction. He said, "Something has gone wrong. We need help now." Those waiting immediately understood that a serious difficulty had arisen. Two of them departed at once to locate Mark Engel and the second team, moving as quickly as the cave passages permitted. The third individual, Sky Fisher, stayed at the junction in an effort to provide assistance. Because the crawl was blocked by Dunleavy's body, Fisher could accomplish little from that position. Pain in the penned legs increased steadily. At the same time, the breakdown formation continued to settle and shift above the crawl. Dunleavy recognized that his release was essential not only for himself, but also for the three men sealed behind him. After a period that felt longer but measured approximately 30 minutes, one of the trapped cavers remembered that he carried a short length of rope inside a small personal pack he had taken into the side passage rather than leaving it with the main gear. He said, "I have some rope in my small pack." Fisher was able to reach through a gap in the breakdown and retrieve that rope. The rope supplied the first practical means of applying mechanical advantage. Instead of relying solely on direct hand force, the group could now attempt to wrap the rock and pull from more favorable angles, or construct a rudimentary lifting arrangement. All work had to be performed inside the restricted crawl, where every motion required precision. Too much force risked further movement of the unstable stones overhead, while too little force produced no result. After several coordinated attempts, Dunleavy succeeded in shifting the rock just enough to open a small gap. The others then worked the rope around the boulder. With the rope in position, the combined effort raised the stone sufficiently for Dunleavy to draw his crushed legs free. Dunleavy said, "I am clear, get out now." The instant he was clear, Dunleavy moved out of the crawl as rapidly as the space allowed. The three men behind him followed at once, none remaining under the breakdown longer than necessary. They emerged at the junction, where the abandoned packs still rested a short distance from the point of the near disaster. Mark Engel and the members of the second team arrived as the situation was resolving. They found the four men shaken yet alive, and gathered near the packs that had contained the very tools needed earlier. After a period of rest and a basic medical check, the party decided to continue the remainder of the planned cave tour. In the incident report he later prepared, Kevin Dunleavy wrote that cavers should never allow themselves to be separated from their packs. The common assurance that a detour would last only 10 to 20 minutes and that the group would be right back out had been heard many times before, and on this occasion had placed four people in direct danger. The event demonstrated the persistent hazard presented by breakdown formations and the concrete consequence of leaving essential equipment behind even when the intended absence is brief. The packs sitting unused at the junction contained hammers, webbing, and other items that would have allowed the rock to be broken or lifted far sooner. The decision to leave them had turned a short side trip into a situation in which three men were sealed behind an injured leader, and the leader himself was pinned under unstable rock. Once free, the group recovered at the junction before proceeding with the rest of the tour as originally planned. Dunleavy's written account emphasized that the phrase about returning in 10 to 20 minutes had been used on earlier trips and had again proven costly. The incident remains a clear example of how breakdown rock can shift under the vibrations of body movement in a tight crawl, and how the absence of immediate access to tools prolongs the time a person remains trapped. In the early hours of Saturday, March 1, 1997, a group of teenagers gathered at Eureka Cave in the high desert roughly 6 miles east of Mountain Home, Idaho. Eureka Cave is a lava tube located on the Snake River Plain. Lava tubes form when molten rock flows across the landscape and the outer surface cools and hardens into a solid crust, while the still liquid interior continues to drain away, leaving an empty channel of volcanic stone behind. This process occurred repeatedly across southern Idaho during periods of volcanic activity that shaped the broad flat expanse known as the Snake River Plain. At some point in the distant past, a section of the roof of this particular tube collapsed, creating an open pit at the surface. The opening measures about 20 yards across. The floor of the pit sits approximately 30 feet below the rim and consists of a jumble of jagged, broken lava rock. Local residents in the Mountain Home area knew the site as a place where young people sometimes went because it was isolated and unsupervised. Old graffiti and discarded items from earlier visits were visible around the rim and the surrounding desert floor. The night began with an organized alcohol-free going-away party held on Mountain Home Air Force Base under adult supervision. Mountain Home Air Force Base is a major installation in the region, and the party was a formal event with no alcohol and with adults present to oversee the young people. After that event ended, a number of the teenagers left the base and drove into the desert seeking a location without adult presence. They arrived at the rim of Eureka Cave, built a fire near the edge, and remained there into the early morning hours. More than a dozen young people stood around the fire at approximately 1 o'clock in the morning, with the open 30-foot drop only a short distance behind them. The ground around the fire offered no barrier between the gathering and the edge of the pit. The darkness of the high desert at that hour limited visibility beyond the reach of the flames. One of those present was 15-year-old Carly Lemke. She took a single step backward away from the heat of the fire. There was no solid ground behind her. She fell the full 30 feet onto the jagged rocks in the deepest part of the pit. The impact fractured her back, ruptured a disc in her neck, and caused a serious head injury. She was unable to move or climb out on her own and remained at the bottom of the opening on the cold, broken rock. The injuries were consistent with a fall of that height onto irregular volcanic stone, which offers no cushioning. The response from the group above was mixed. According to one person who saw the fall, 9 of the 12 other teenagers left the site rather than remain with the injured girl. Reports later indicated that alcohol had been present at the desert gathering, and local authorities investigated whether some of those who departed did so to avoid possible arrest related to underage drinking. Not everyone left. An unidentified girl used a telephone to call 911 and report the incident. That call is the documented reason emergency services were dispatched to the remote location. 2 other girls stayed at the rim of the pit and waited for help to arrive. One boy climbed down the 30 feet of broken rock carrying a blanket. He placed the blanket over Carly Lemke and remained beside her in the cold until emergency personnel reached the location. He made no attempt to move her because of the nature of her injuries and the risk of causing further damage to her spine or head. Paramedics arrived at Eureka Cave and found the 2 girls keeping watch at the surface and the boy at the bottom of the pit with Lemke. They brought her out of the hole using standard extraction methods for a remote vertical drop and transported her to St. Alphonsus Regional Medical Center in Boise. She was listed in critical condition with the fractures, head injury, and neck damage already described. Her father, Air Force Technical Sergeant Craig Lemke, later reported that doctors removed her from a respirator machine and that she was breathing on her own. She remained unconscious at that point, but showed some signs of improvement in the days immediately after the accident. Contemporary newspaper accounts from early March 1997, including reports published on March 8 and March 9, recorded these medical updates while noting that fuller long-term details were not yet available in the public record. Caves and lava tubes present a set of fixed physical risks that do not change because people decide to gather near them. Absolute darkness occurs the moment any carried light fails. Ambient temperatures stay low even when surface conditions are mild, often remaining near the average annual temperature of the surrounding rock. Rock that has held for thousands of years can shift without notice, especially after freeze-thaw cycles or vibration. Water can rise and fill passages in a short time after surface rainfall or snowmelt. Falls from even moderate heights onto broken volcanic rock produce severe trauma, including spinal fractures, head injuries, and internal damage. People who enter or stand near such openings without proper equipment, training, and caution face those risks directly. Organizations that track cave-related incidents have documented multiple fatalities and serious injuries in cave environments across the United States each year, from these exact causes including falls, rockfall, hypothermia, and flooding. Eureka Cave is one of many lava tubes distributed across the Snake River Plain, a region shaped by repeated volcanic activity over long periods of geologic time. The plain contains numerous similar hollow features, some of which are documented and some of which remain less mapped. The specific opening, known as Eureka Cave, had already become a recognized local spot for informal gatherings precisely because of its isolation from town and from adult supervision. The sequence of events that night followed a clear path. A supervised base party ended. The group relocated to an unsupervised rim above a 30-foot drop. A fire was lit on the edge. A single ordinary step backward placed one person over the edge into empty space and then onto the broken rock below. Most of the remaining teenagers left the scene shortly afterward. A call for emergency help was placed by one of those who stayed. 2 girls remained at the surface. One boy climbed down with a blanket and stayed with the injured girl. Rescue personnel extracted her from the pit and took her to the hospital in Boise, where she received treatment for the documented injuries. Public reports available in the days after the incident confirmed survival of the fall itself and of the period spent at the bottom of the pit in cold conditions, but did not provide a complete long-term medical record beyond the initial improvement noted by her father regarding independent breathing. The physical characteristics of the site remained unchanged after the night. The lava tube opening continued to measure roughly 20 yards across, with a 30-foot drop to broken rock. The surrounding high desert offered little natural light or protection once the fire went out. The decision to treat the rim as a place for a late-night gathering placed the entire group in direct proximity to a known hazard. The actions of those who stayed the telephone call and the descent with the blanket formed the portion of the response that ensured help reached the injured girl while she was still alive. The investigation into possible alcohol use and the reasons some left the scene continued according to local authorities, but the core facts of the fall, the injuries, the partial abandonment of the site, and the presence of those who remained are established by the contemporary accounts from March 1997. The Snake River Plain continues to contain many similar lava tube openings, and the same physical risks apply to any of them when people stand near the edges without barriers or caution, especially in darkness, and without the equipment or training that professional CAVERS use to reduce those hazards. On November 23, 2019, 5 college students from Purdue University arrived at Valhalla Cave in Jackson County, Alabama. They had planned the trip for weeks, researched the site, gathered equipment, and obtained the required permit from the Southeastern Cave Conservancy. Valhalla Cave is known among cavers for its 227-foot entrance pit. The drop demands technical skill and proper gear. Experienced cavers treat it as a significant vertical challenge. Unprepared groups face serious risk. The preserve covers 145 acres and contains more than a mile of passage beyond the entrance. Access is controlled to protect both the resource and visitors. The cave has been managed by the Conservancy since 2002 and is listed as one of the finer pit caves in the southeastern United States. The group camped near the preserve the night before. On the morning of the 23rd, they prepared to descend the entrance pit. Their longest rope was not long enough to reach the bottom in a single length. A proper single rope descent requires continuous rope covering the full drop, instead of postponing the attempt or locating a longer rope. They joined two shorter ropes with a double fisherman's knot. The knot is strong when properly dressed and set, but it creates a transition point that must be passed mid-rappel. When they rigged the system, the joining knot sat just below the lip of the pit. Anyone descending would have to stop in free space, transfer the rappel device past the knot, and continue on the lower rope. This placement increases the difficulty because the transition occurs early, while the caver is still near the edge and before full control of the lower rope is established. Field reports later noted that the party had re-rigged the ropes several times, attempting to make their primary length reach the floor before accepting the joined system. Trevor Call, 21, was the most experienced and confident member of the group. He had prior practice passing knots while on rappel. The others trusted his judgment. He volunteered to go first. He checked his harness, helmet, carabiner, and rappel rack. Satisfied with the setup, he clipped in, weighted the rope, and began descending the limestone walls of the pit. After roughly 30 to 40 feet, his headlamp illuminated the knot. He braced against the wall, locked off the rappel rack to stop further movement, and began the transfer. The maneuver requires the rappeller to remain secured while moving the device from the upper rope to the lower rope. At some point during the transfer, Trevor became detached from the system. His body weight was no longer held by the rope. He fell approximately 200 feet to the floor of the entrance chamber. The impact was immediately fatal. Bone and organ trauma were catastrophic. His helmet could not absorb the force of the fall. The remaining students on the surface heard the impact. They called his name. There was no response. They recognized that no one could survive the fall, and that their remaining gear did not allow a safe descent to assist. One of them left the area and drove more than a mile to obtain cell service. They dialed 911 and reported the accident. The Jackson County Sheriff's Office received the call around 8:30 a.m. Central Time. Multiple agencies responded, including the Chattanooga-Hamilton County Rescue Squad's Cave and Cliff Team, the Huntsville Cave Rescue Unit, Scottsboro Rescue Squad, Hollywood Fire, and additional units from surrounding departments. Rescuers established a secure rope system with proper anchors and descended into the pit. When they recovered Trevor's rope, they found his rappel rack still attached and locked off exactly as it had been set before the transfer attempt. His harness was intact. The carabiner that linked the harness to the system was partially open. A small notch in the locking sleeve indicated that force applied under load had overcome the locked gate. The configuration is consistent with a locked gate rollout failure in which torque from hardware forced the gate open far enough for the connection to release. The equipment itself had not broken. The connection between harness and rope had failed during the critical moments of the knot passage. Rescuers reached the bottom and confirmed that Trevor Call was deceased. There were no signs of life. The recovery operation took several hours. The body was brought to the surface later that day. Trevor Call was a senior mechanical engineering student in the Purdue Honors College. Originally from Austin, Texas, he was on track for a bachelor's degree in 2020 and a master's in 2021. He participated in the Formula SAE racing team and the Purdue Outing Club. The trip was not an official university or outing club activity, though the participants were experienced hikers and cavers and held the necessary permit for Valhalla Preserve. This was the first fatality recorded at the preserve since the Conservancy acquired it. Authorities noted that Call was the third person to die in cave-related incidents in Jackson County that year, with 2 earlier fatalities occurring at a separate site. Passing a knot mid-rappel is a recognized advanced technique. It requires the rappeller to maintain continuous attachment or to use redundant protection while transferring the device. Joining ropes with a double fisherman's knot is common when a single continuous length is unavailable, but the knot creates a bulky obstruction that the rappel device cannot pass without intervention. Any interruption of the load path during that intervention leaves the caver dependent on secondary connections or body positioning alone. In this case, the secondary connection failed under load. Investigation by local authorities and input from experienced cave rescuers established that the fall resulted from the detachment during the knot passage rather than from rope failure or a complete equipment collapse. The group had assessed the rope length problem and chosen to proceed with the joined system. They had not anticipated the specific failure mode that occurred at the carabiner under the forces generated at the moment of weight transfer. Caving literature and rescue reports repeatedly note that even experienced parties can encounter sudden mechanical issues when systems are modified in the field under time pressure or incomplete redundancy. Standard vertical caving practice calls for a single continuous rope of verified length whenever possible. Placement of any necessary knots well clear of the lip, and the use of backup attachment points such as cows' tails during device transfers. These steps reduce the interval in which a single point of failure can produce an uncontrolled fall. The entrance pit at Valhalla remains a demanding objective. Its depth, smooth limestone walls, and the requirement for reliable vertical gear make it unsuitable for improvised rope systems, or for any descent in which a mid-pitch transition cannot be performed with full security. Trevor Call's death illustrates the narrow margin that exists in vertical caving. Skill and prior experience do not eliminate the consequences of a single failed connection. The group followed many of the expected preparations: permits, camping, equipment checks, yet the combination of an undersized rope inventory, the placement of the joining knot, and the loss of attachment during the transfer produced a fatal outcome. Rescue teams recovered the body and documented the gear configuration. The incident was reported through official channels and entered the record of cave-related fatalities maintained by the National Speleological Society and regional conservancies. Valhalla Cave continues to be visited by permitted groups under the management of the Southeastern Cave Conservancy. Access requires advance permits, adherence to established safety practices, and recognition that the 227-foot entrance drop leaves little room for error once a caver leaves the surface. The events of November 23, 2019 remain a documented case of equipment connection failure during a mid-rappel knot passage in a deep pit, with the resulting free fall proving unsurvivable. Local officials and rescuers confirmed the exact state of the locked-off rack and the compromised carabiner, providing a clear mechanical explanation for the loss of attachment under load. On the morning of July 23, 1983, a 25-year-old man named Gilberto Vizquez Cabrera entered a submerged cave beneath a mountain in Puerto Rico. The cave is known as Manantial de las Aguas Fras, which translates to the spring of cold waters. It lies near the Manat River in the northern interior of the island, an area of green hills where surface rivers connect to extensive underground limestone systems. The entrance measures about 40 feet high and 30 feet wide. Inside, the air cools quickly and carries the distinct odor of wet limestone. At the rear of the entrance chamber, the ceiling lowers to meet a pool 5 to 6 feet deep. A small opening, roughly 2 feet high and 3 to 4 feet wide, sits in the side of that pool. Divers must maneuver carefully with their tanks and gear to pass through it. Beyond the opening stretches a tunnel-like passage that descends at a 15-degree slope for 700 feet, then angles upward for another 240 feet to connect with a vertical shaft on the opposite side of the mountain. The total submerged distance exceeds 1,900 feet. The water remains cold, dark, and exceptionally still, with fine silt covering the floor that has built up undisturbed for thousands of years. 8 divers assembled that Saturday morning for the exploration. Each carried a single tank providing approximately 20 minutes of air. Cave diving relies on strict air management. The standard rule of thirds requires 1/3 of the air for entry, 1/3 for exit, and 1/3 in reserve for problems. A single 20-minute tank offers limited margin for a passage of this length and slope. Experienced divers can move efficiently, but the downward section demands careful calculation for the return trip against the incline. The dives started without immediate issues. Surface support monitored the pool and tracked times for each diver's return. When the 20-minute mark passed for Cabrera, he did not reappear. His dive partner surfaced alone. The partner reported air supply difficulties inside the passage. The two had become separated, and the partner last saw Cabrera deeper in the system. The partner searched until his own air reserves forced him to ascend. Other team members entered the water right away to search as far as their air allowed. They called out with light beams through the dark water, but found no sign of Cabrera. The searches returned empty-handed, and the entrance pool showed no further activity. The group contacted the National Speleological Society for assistance. This step brought in specialized resources. The S arranged for 2 experienced cave diving experts from Florida, Henry Nicholson and Wes Skiles. They traveled to Puerto Rico on an Air Force aircraft. The operation shifted to a formal extended search. Over several days, the experts and team conducted systematic dives into the passage. Conditions included cold water, low visibility, and silt that clouded quickly with any movement, often reducing light beams to near zero. Despite these challenges, searchers located evidence. At a point 130 feet from the entrance, they recovered a knife, a section of lanyard, and a tether hook connected to a cut piece of lifeline. These items indicated that Cabrera had reached that location during his exit attempt. They suggested some form of equipment failure, struggle, or sudden displacement had occurred there, close to safety but still within the flooded tunnel. No body was located despite continued efforts. The search was eventually called off, and Cabrera remained in the cave. Wes Skiles, after spending time in the passage, proposed an explanation based on the site's specific conditions. In open water, divers actively control buoyancy by adjusting their buoyancy compensator and breathing patterns to stay neutral. In a confined tunnel, this process becomes more critical. Skiles suggested Cabrera may have lost neutral buoyancy and risen toward the ceiling. The passage ceiling contains numerous cracks. Approaching these cracks creates localized pressure drops that generate an upward suction force. A diver already moving upward can be drawn into a crack, where the same pressure dynamics pull them farther in. The space narrows with debris and sediment, leaving no solid surface to push against for escape. Once wedged in such a position with limited air remaining, self-rescue becomes nearly impossible. Skiles described the situation as one that leaves a diver in grave difficulty, consistent with the lack of recovery in this case. The passage geometry includes the initial descent of 700 feet at 15 degrees, followed by the ascent section. The entire system threads through limestone bedrock formed over geological periods. Cabrera was 25 years old at the time. He entered the cave on a Saturday morning in July, when conditions outside included warm rivers, green hills, and rising daytime heat. The 2-foot restriction at the pool side marked the transition from the accessible entrance to the overhead environment. Whether he traversed the full distance to the far shaft or encountered the ceiling issue nearer the entrance remains unknown. The physical evidence stopped at the 130-foot mark on the return path. Cave diving in systems like this requires precise planning due to the overhead nature, where direct ascent to the surface is blocked. The rule of thirds exists specifically to account for emergencies such as silt-outs, equipment problems, or navigation errors. Single tank setups were used by the group, a practice that limits bottom time and increases risk in extended penetrations. In 1983, the team operated with the knowledge available, but the combination of factors aligned against them. The silt layer on the floor, accumulated over millennia, can reduce visibility from clear to zero in moments. Limestone passages frequently develop cracks from dissolution and structural shifts, creating the pressure traps Skiles identified. Rescue operations in underwater caves demand divers with advanced training, as standard open water techniques do not apply. The involvement of Nicholson and Skiles brought expertise from Florida's extensive cave systems where similar conditions exist. Their searches covered the known passage limits within safe air margins. The recovered items provided the only tangible clues. These suggested Cabrera was attempting to manage a problem, possibly cutting or losing gear during an effort to free himself or signal. The absence of further traces deeper in the system supported the idea of an entrapment closer to the entrance. The Manancial de las Aguas Fras connects to broader regional hydrology, where surface water infiltrates the karst landscape and flows through underground conduits. This creates stable but isolated conditions inside, with minimal water movement that allows silt to settle densely. Divers entering such places must maintain strict buddy procedures, continuous guideline use, and conservative gas planning. Separation in zero visibility often leads to independent exits, as occurred here. Cabrera's partner exhausted his search time and returned, prompting the larger response. The Air Force transport for the experts underscored the seriousness attached to the case by authorities. Skiles' theory highlights a little-known risk in sealing features. Buoyancy loss can stem from suit compression, improper weighting, or breathing changes under stress. Once against the ceiling, the Bernoulli principle contributes to the suction effect near cracks, where faster flow through restrictions lowers pressure. This can embed a diver in sediment fill that acts like a one-way trap. In this incident, the window closed before such intervention could happen. The mountain ridge itself, formed through tectonic and dissolution processes spanning thousands of years, leaving the passage as a natural but unforgiving route. Cabrera's disappearance stands as a documented case in caving accident records maintained by the National Speleological Society. It illustrates core principles of risk assessment in technical diving. Factors such as team experience, equipment configuration, environmental conditions, and emergency protocols all interact in ways that can turn a planned exploration into a permanent loss. The 130-foot evidence point remains the farthest confirmed position on his exit. From there to the entrance pool lay a short distance in linear terms, yet insurmountable under the circumstances. The cave continues to hold its secrets, with the underground system unchanged since 1983. Paradise Springs in Florida stood out as a beautiful location and a hidden gem that attracted divers looking for adventure in its exceptionally clear waters. On September 22, 1996, two friends named Jake Miller and Lisa Carter reached the site ready to explore its depths. Both held open water diver certifications, but lacked any specific training for cave diving. The appeal of the unknown drew them in despite the risks involved. As they prepared their equipment, they reviewed basic procedures and discussed their plan in detail right before entering the water. They did not bring a safety guideline, which is a thin rope that trained cave divers use to mark their path and ensure they can return to the exit. This item seemed unnecessary to them since they had completed many dives together and relied on their instincts and shared experience. The first part of the descent felt impressive. At around 60 feet, the cave entrance appeared ahead of them. They activated their flashlights to light the way forward. Jake took the lead and moved carefully into the narrowing passage, while Lisa stayed close behind. Her heart rate increased from a mix of excitement and growing concern. They continued deeper into the system. At 148 feet, they had traveled farther than they originally planned, but neither one spoke up about turning back. The environment around them stayed quiet, except for the steady sound of their breathing through the regulators. Their lights moved across the limestone walls and highlighted ancient formations that remained untouched for thousands of years. Then conditions changed suddenly. Jake adjusted his position and stirred up a dense cloud of silt from the cavern floor. The fine particles rose quickly and blocked out all light. Visibility dropped to 0 within seconds. Lisa experienced a wave of fear and reached out to find Jake, but her hands found only water. The cave that had seemed inspiring now felt confining. She worked to control her breathing and stay calm, because she understood that panic creates the biggest danger during an emergency. Jake reacted differently. Disoriented and unable to see, he moved erratically in an effort to find his way back. He changed directions multiple times, which increased his confusion. His breathing rate sped up and used his air supply faster than normal. His hand touched a narrow opening in the rock, and in his urgency he tried to push through it. His tank and harness became stuck in the tight space, leaving him unable to move forward or backward. Complete darkness surrounded him along with the silt. Lisa continued searching by sweeping her arms through the clouded water for any contact with her partner. She noticed a change in the water movement ahead. This raised new worries about the stability of the cave structure. With her own oxygen levels decreasing and no reliable way to locate Jake, she decided quickly to ascend. She kicked strongly toward the surface. The trip upward seemed to take a long time. When she broke through to the open air, she removed her mask and contacted emergency services immediately. She recognized the serious nature of the situation and that Jake had limited time remaining. Back inside the cave, Jake struggled to survive. The rock pressed against his chest and held his shoulders firmly in place. He paused his efforts briefly while overcome by fear. His breaths became shallow and uneven. The regulator felt ineffective as his tank approached empty. He needed to free himself. With shaking hands, he worked at his harness. His fingers felt numb inside the gloves. After several attempts, he loosened the straps and detached the harness along with the tank. This action allowed him to move backward and float free. But now he lacked any light source, guideline, or air supply. The silt remained thick and blinding. He reached out by instinct for a line that did not exist. His lungs started to burn from the lack of oxygen. He pushed away from the rock and kicked to try ascending. Without the regulator or tank, he held his breath while moving upward. Rescue teams reached the site within an hour. They moved efficiently and entered the cave while navigating the suspended silt to search for Jake. What they encountered differed from initial assumptions. No major cave collapse had occurred. They located Jake's body near the crevice where he had been stuck earlier. Evidence showed he had succeeded in freeing himself at some point. Investigators reviewed the details afterward and determined the likely sequence. In the midst of panic, Jake removed his harness and tank to escape the tight spot. Disoriented without light or a guideline in the swirling silt, he attempted a free ascent while holding his breath. As he rose, the pressure changes caused expanding gases in his lungs, which probably led to an arterial gas embolism. This condition resulted in unconsciousness before he could reach safety. His body was found at the 44-foot level, drifting in the water. News of the incident circulated quickly. Initial reports incorrectly attributed the death to a cave collapse. This event was not the first or last involving untrained divers in underwater cave systems. Paradise Springs features a complex labyrinth of passages beneath its surface. Florida's springs often appear inviting with clear water, but contain hidden restrictions and silt deposits. Standard open water training covers basic scuba skills, but does not address the specialized techniques required for overhead environments like caves. These include proper use of guidelines for navigation and gas management rules. Jake and Lisa had underestimated these specific hazards. The absence of a guideline meant no reliable reference point once visibility failed. Kicking up silt is a common trigger in such confined spaces. Panic can lead to poor decisions like ditching equipment. In this case, the free ascent without sufficient gas increased the risk of barotrauma. Recovery operations require experienced teams with full cave certifications. They documented the site conditions carefully. Lisa survived the ordeal but faced significant emotional impact. She later reflected on the decisions made that day and acknowledged that proper training and equipment could have changed the outcome. The incident highlighted ongoing challenges at sites like Paradise Springs. Cave diving organizations stress the importance of progressive training, carrying multiple lights, a continuous guideline, and appropriate gas mixtures. The limestone geology in this region creates extensive networks of underwater passages formed over millennia. Divers who enter without preparation often encounter situations where small errors compound rapidly. Training emphasizes maintaining contact with a line, controlling buoyancy to avoid stirring sediment, and recognizing personal limits before entering overhead environments. Following the event, discussions focused on better education for recreational divers about the differences between open water and cave diving. Equipment checks and emergency procedures receive extra attention in advanced courses. Jake's attempt to free himself showed determination and the disorientation that follows total loss of visibility. The final position of his body indicated he had made progress toward the surface before the effects of the embolism took hold. Emergency responders noted the difficulties of operations in low visibility cave conditions. This account preserves the sequence of events from that September day. The clear waters of Paradise Springs continue to attract divers, but the lessons from this incident underscore the need for respect toward the underwater cave systems and adherence to established safety practices. The combination of inexperience, missing safety tools, and the sudden environmental change created conditions that proved fatal. On January 20, 2018, 7 men from German-speaking parts of Switzerland reached the Muadathal Valley to join a guided expedition into the Hellick Cave system. These individuals were aged between 25 and 55. They did not plan to spend longer than one night underground. The guide recognized that the cave environment could alter suddenly whenever water entered the lower passages. Hellick stands as one of Europe's most extensive cave networks. Its documented tunnels stretch beyond 200 kilometers under the limestone mountains of the canton of Schwyz. This karst formation includes broad galleries, steep vertical shafts, flowing underground streams, and multiple sections prone to complete blockage when flooding occurs. Winter months normally provide the best conditions for deeper trips, since a large portion of the mountain's water stays frozen in snow cover at higher altitudes. Organizers therefore timed the group's 2-day expedition for January, anticipating that the cave streams would remain at lower levels throughout. The weather forecast created an unexpected issue. Predictions called for snow at elevated areas, but temperatures increased and rain fell instead. Water that might have stayed frozen now moved across the slopes and infiltrated the cave system at various points. The hazards of such flooding gained recognition from a 1952 exploration. In that case, a team found itself cut off inside Halleck for 10 days when water sealed the return path. Following the event, teams upgraded permanent bivouacs to support survival during comparable isolations. These improvements transformed potential disasters into planned contingencies. Water flow through Halleck responds to more than just local rain near the entry. Drainage gathers from a wide surface catchment zone, passes through fractures and vertical shafts in the limestone bedrock, and emerges in lower tunnels after a delay of hours or days. Surface observations at the entrance often remain calm while substantial runoff advances toward internal constrictions. Even with the changing conditions, the group started the trip. On Saturday morning, the 7 clients accompanied their certified guide into the main entrance. They carried helmets, headlamps, rubber boots, and full protective clothing. Personal equipment and overnight supplies completed their loads. The itinerary led them nearly 3 kilometers inside the mountain to the established underground camp called the Dom Bivouac. Descent reached approximately 300 meters below ground level. The journey demanded steady physical work across irregular gallery floors, tight squeezes, and vertical changes. Once deep in the system, reversing course to the entrance would consume almost the same time investment as proceeding forward. Construction of the Dom Bivouac occurred in a large, elevated chamber chosen because prior floods had trapped people in Halleck. Placement kept it safely above recorded high water lines. The site featured insulated sleeping zones, meal preparation tools, reserve food stocks, and emergency materials. The party arrived and passed Saturday night as scheduled. Sunday morning brought readiness for the return. The 3-kilometer exit route normally required only several hours under standard flow. Before setting out, the guide examined the forward passage. Water had risen in a low tunnel, turning it into a siphon. The ceiling lowered near the stream, and the volume filled the remaining airspace. Crossing demanded full submersion in moving water without dive equipment. The guide kept the group from advancing. Standard visitors lacked access to simple backup exits. Alternative paths in Halleck exist but feature demanding shafts, rope work, and technical demands limited to specialist rescuers. All 8 returned to the Dom Bivouac. Coordinators outside tracked the expected exit time. Notification of the flood and failure to emerge prompted activation of the Spielo Schweiss Muotathal rescue team. Early responders bypassed the flooded primary route. 4 experts entered through a separate section and started a rigorous descent to the bivouac. Their route crossed wet shafts and complex passages with a 300-meter elevation drop. Reaching the group required about 8 hours. None of the 8 suffered injuries. The chamber stayed dry with temperatures steady near 6 degrees Celsius. Bivouac stores supplied sufficient food, bedding, and tools for extended support. The situation stayed stable, but rescuers avoided leading the amateurs back via the advanced technical entry path. That route needed expertise and gear the clients did not have. Pushing 7 novices through would trade safety for new dangers. Waiting for the water to subside offered the only reliable option. Persistent rain on the mountain continued sending runoff into the limestone. Levels at the siphon stayed elevated, and weather models projected several more days before improvement. The men settled into bivouac routines. Ample chamber space allowed movement. They used insulated platforms for rest, cooked hot food, drank warm beverages, and played cards for distraction. Planners extended food allocations through the weekend, anticipating longer flooding. Isolation under hundreds of meters of rock limited them despite safety from water. Mobile signals could not reach through the massif. Rescue workers set up basic communication and transported messages plus extra supplies along the technical corridor. Monday passed with unchanged high water. The original Sunday exit slipped away. Rescue leaders studied rainfall totals, stream sensors, and drainage timing from surface to depth. Early departure risked sudden closure of any air gap during transit. Surges could press people against ceilings or scatter the party in currents. The guide and command team rejected temporary windows. Tuesday maintained rainfall. Further team members carried additional provisions to the bivouac. Spirits stayed high among the group, shifting the effort toward endurance. Technical fixes like pumping or drilling offered no quick resolution to the exit blockage. Wednesday brought warnings that the stay might extend until Saturday. The trapped party adjusted expectations for a near week underground. Safety hinged on the bivouac design. Without dry areas and reserves, 5 days at 6 degrees could trigger hypothermia, depletion, and urgent intervention needs. The shelter enabled calm waiting instead of forced risky movement. Teams monitored streams and forecasts continuously. Thursday showed earlier positive shifts. Reduced rain allowed slow recession at the siphon. A transit window opened, though narrow. Minimum airspace measured around 40 centimeters at the critical low point. Careful single-file progress in cold water became necessary. Stability had to hold for the whole group plus escorts. Inspectors confirmed viability. After 5 days at the bivouac, the men packed and departed that evening. Positions along the route allowed monitoring. They left the Dom bivouac and navigated toward the siphon. Water reached knee-height in spots. Each crossed the tight section with heads in the slim air pocket. Once clear, the major hurdle ended. Nearly 3 kilometers of wet galleries and climbs remained. Days underground left them fatigued for the ascent. Guides controlled pace and checked for strain. The complete exit took 2.5 hours. Late Thursday night on January 25, they arrived at the entrance. Just before midnight, the 7 clients and guide exited Helic uninjured. Surface teams provided medical reviews, showers, and meals. All returned home soon after. Planned for 2 days, the expedition extended to nearly 6. The guide selected a bivouac readied by past lessons. Supplies and procedures prevented escalation. Refusal to enter rising water proved essential. Filled siphons leave no easy passage. The group waited 3 kilometers in until the system permitted release. Helic's extensive karst hydrology, spanning 211 kilometers mapped with depths to 1,033 meters, explains recurring floods. Limestone permeability creates delayed responses to surface precipitation. Multiple past incidents led to bivouac enhancements and better monitoring. Swiss rescue coordination integrates weather data, gauges, and stage supplies. The event demonstrated effective management of prolonged isolation through preparation rather than haste. CAVERS benefit from understanding these dynamics in planning. Similar events reinforce training for patients in flood-prone systems. Overall, the resolution highlighted strengths in equipment, procedures, and decision-making under the mountain. On the morning of May 2, 1976, clear skies covered the Yorkshire Dales. 6 members of the Newcastle University Caving Club assembled their gear for a trip into Langstroth Pot, a demanding cave system near Upper Wharfedale. The cave features steep vertical shafts, fast-moving water, and multiple submerged passages known as sumps. The group included Martin Blackburn, Brian Fox, Donald Southern, and 3 companions. These individuals had spent months caving together, building strong mutual trust and the technical abilities required for tough underground environments. Cave diving practices in 1976 remained an emerging activity. Specialized scuba gear was scarce among recreational explorers, so free diving through brief sumps formed a standard approach. The method involved inhaling deeply, submerging, and pulling along the rock walls by handholds to reach the next section. Success depended on solid lung capacity, capable swimming, and full reliance on personal skills. The team started their descent into Langstroth Pot with high energy. They advanced through the entrance chambers in an orderly fashion, sticking to known paths and inspecting equipment at intervals. The cave presented typical conditions for the area: low temperatures, constant wetness, and moderate challenges that stayed within their prior experience. Seasonal water levels appeared standard, supporting their intended route without immediate issues. Deeper into the system, the cavers navigated a sequence of vertical drops and constricted passages. They handled each section with coordinated care, confirming safe passage for the full group before proceeding. Time accumulated as they worked through the intricate layout. Eventually, they arrived at a sump that would prove decisive. It resembled other underwater sections they had crossed before. Water filled a tunnel in the limestone rock, with visible signs of an airspace on the far side where breathing could resume. The established plan called for the first 3 to free dive the sump, surface in the chamber ahead, recover, and then press onward while the others followed. This division had proven reliable across numerous prior trips in Yorkshire Dales caves. Martin Blackburn entered first. He performed several deep breaths to saturate his blood with oxygen, followed by brief hyperventilation to reduce carbon dioxide, then took a full breath and submerged into the dark water. The sump measured roughly 20 to 30 feet, a distance an experienced swimmer could cover in under a minute. Brian Fox went next, repeating the same preparation and disappearing into the passage. Donald Southern completed the initial trio using identical steps. The 3 surfaced in what looked like a secure air pocket beyond the sump. They had executed the crossing as practiced many times, expecting a spot to rest and regain strength before further exploration. From the viewpoint of the waiting members, the dive appeared successful. No distress signals or unusual sounds reached back through the water. Unseen by any of them, the air in that chamber carried contamination. It held what cavers term bad air, an environment depleted of oxygen and filled with elevated carbon dioxide. The space offered no obvious indicators of hazard, no distinct smell, taste, or visible difference from normal air. Such conditions arise from multiple underground processes. Decomposing organic material in still water uses up oxygen and generates carbon dioxide. Limited ventilation allows gases to concentrate gradually. In some cases, the surrounding geology releases additional compounds that displace breathable air. When the 3 men reached the surface after their exertion, they inhaled this mixture without realizing its effects. Each breath delivered reduced oxygen while increasing carbon dioxide intake beyond safe limits for the body. The impacts of bad air develop gradually and without clear alerts. Initial signs might include lightheadedness or mental fog, followed by declining motor control. Consciousness can slip away abruptly. The men continued as if in a routine stop, discussing next steps in the cave. Soon their sight dimmed, movement slowed, and clear thought faded. One after another, Martin Blackburn, Brian Fox and Donald Southern lost awareness and sank beneath the water. Their passing resulted from the toxic atmosphere rather than direct drowning. The remaining 3 cavers stayed at the near side of the sump. Standard delays occur during team movements through difficult areas, so early minutes raised no major worry. As time extended into hours without return or communication, concern mounted. The section beyond the sump held limited complexity, making prolonged absence unexpected. Calls produced only echoes mixed with water flow. Lights directed into the sump showed nothing. The group then faced the choice common in caving emergencies. One member would exit to summon external assistance while the others maintained watch inside. Rescue personnel later entered Langstroth Pot equipped with breathing devices and conducted a thorough search. They located the 3 in the chamber past the sump. The bodies floated calmly, showing no signs of violent struggle, entrapment, or injury from rockfall. Air quality tests confirmed the hazard: critically low oxygen combined with high carbon dioxide levels that prevented sustained human life. The supposed resting area had functioned as a lethal trap. Recovery required careful use of specialized apparatus, with teams limiting exposure time to avoid their own risks in the contaminated space. Post-incident analysis highlighted the circumstances. The cavers had followed 1970s protocols correctly. They possessed suitable experience, standard equipment for the era, and methods validated in other systems. No individual mistakes or poor decisions caused the outcome. Instead, they met a natural occurrence foul air accumulation that received little documentation and lacked accessible detection tools for typical recreational groups at the time. Records from the Yorkshire Dales note this as one of several multiple fatality events in UK caving history. Similar bad air risks appear in other limestone systems where ventilation varies with weather, water movement, and passage layout. Modern training incorporates gas monitors, oxygen analyzers, and strict protocols for air bells after sumps. Explorers now recognize that even short free dives carry hidden atmospheric dangers in enclosed chambers. The incident prompted reviews of free diving practices and greater emphasis on backup signals and team separation limits. Langstroth Pot itself continues to attract cavers, though with updated safety measures. The cave's hydrology and geology contribute to occasional gas buildup, influenced by rainfall patterns and organic inputs from the surface. Documentation of the 1976 event appears in caving fatality lists and club histories, serving as a reference for risk assessment. The 3 men, all associated with university caving activities, represented the dedicated amateur community active in northern England during that decade. Further context on cave atmospheres shows carbon dioxide can reach concentrations of 5 to 10% or higher in stagnant zones, triggering rapid unconsciousness after initial exposure. Oxygen drops below 15% compound the problem. Unlike surface environments, underground air exchange depends on narrow connections and pressure differences, making prediction difficult without instruments. In the Langstroth case, the airbell's position after the sump allowed gas to pool undetected until the divers arrived. This event aligned with broader patterns in 1970s UK caving, where equipment limitations and expanding exploration increased encounters with unknown hazards. Rescue organizations refined procedures afterward, including mandatory gas testing. The story underscores teamwork limits. Separated groups cannot always respond instantly to silent threats. In summary, the Langstroth Pot event of May 1976 involved experienced cavers who completed a standard free dive only to succumb in a contaminated chamber. Their efforts highlighted gaps in contemporary understanding of underground air dynamics. Current practices integrate those lessons through technology and procedure, reducing similar risks while preserving the sport's challenges. The Yorkshire Dales cave systems, including Langstroth, continue to offer exploration under informed safety standards developed partly from this tragedy. On Sunday, March 22, 2026, a group entered one of the caves. They followed the usual pattern for such trips. The passages narrowed, forcing belly crawls. Helmet lights provided the only illumination as knees and bodies pressed against mud. The route alternated between narrow and slightly wider sections as the group advanced deeper. They reached a constricted part of the passage. One caver entered the squeeze. He adjusted his shoulders and worked his way forward. Progress continued at first. His chest, hips, knees, and feet needed precise alignment with the rock contours. Once inside the squeeze, the cave dictated the speed of movement. Then his advance halted. He tried shifting his shoulder. No change occurred. He pushed with his feet. The surrounding rock kept him fixed in place. Attempts to back out failed. The caver was now trapped in the tight section. His companions remained composed. They avoided pulling him backward, as sudden force in a confined space risks injury or further jamming. The group initiated standard emergency steps and requested assistance. Mendip Cave Rescue received the alert. On the surface, volunteers prepared for action. This was not a standard surface operation. Regular medical teams lack the training for confined underground spaces. Cave rescue requires specialists familiar with tight passages, underground coordination, rigging systems, medical care, and navigation through rock with minimal space. The initial rescue team entered the cave. They navigated the same routes the original group had used. Gear bags moved through the crawls. Helmet lights advanced slowly in the darkness. Each rescuer had to reach the trapped individual via the difficult path that caused the problem. Upon arrival, the situation was evident. The caver was immobilized in a position where standard motions no longer functioned. The team addressed the squeeze with care. They assessed his status, communicated with him, managed the process, and focused on exact body angles. A shoulder adjustment was necessary. His hips required clearance. Breathing needed steady control. The effort demanded precision at the centimeter level. Initial tries did not resolve the issue. The rescuers repositioned him, paused to check breathing, and attempted again. The cave permitted only small modifications. A rescuer near his head provided focus while others handled shoulders and hips. Equipment passed through slowly due to zero extra room. Each adjustment involved stops, checks, and instructions. Time accumulated. During this operation, another call arrived. A different caver in the same Mendip area had a leg injury and was unable to exit. He had lost his grip and fallen in a narrow chute, leaving him unable to stand or move properly. The response now covered two separate emergencies. One involved a body wedged in rock. The other concerned an injured person underground. More than 40 volunteer rescuers participated across both events. Additional Mendip Cave Rescue members and Gloucester Cave Rescue personnel stood ready. Command divided resources, personnel, and supplies while maintaining progress on each case. At the first location, work on the trapped caver continued. Rescuers could not apply strong pulls or hurry the process. They shifted his body gradually, guiding it through the narrow rock that held him. Meanwhile, another team approached the second caver. They reached him and evaluated his condition. The leg injury presented distinct challenges. He was not wedged but could not walk out. In caves, a leg injury transforms every crawl, climb, slope, and drop into a major barrier. A path normal on entry becomes demanding on exit when a leg cannot function fully. The team prepared him for removal while protecting the injury. Every motion had to safeguard the leg. They planned movement through sections one at a time. Evacuation did not proceed as a single carry. The group secured him, shielded the injured leg, and advanced only when the next part was prepared. A crawl turned into a slow drag. Back at the squeeze site, efforts persisted. The team used lubricants and carefully widened the gap with chisels to create enough clearance. The trapped caver's body started to shift, first in small increments, then further. Rescuers adjusted his position once more. His shoulder passed, followed by his hips. The section that had held him released its grip. After several hours of precise work, he came free from the tight area. Release from the squeeze did not complete the operation. He still needed to exit the cave after prolonged immobility in one spot. Fatigue, cold, and exhaustion affected him. Rescuers accompanied him through the remaining passages toward the surface. At the same time, the second evacuation advanced. Rescuers assisted the injured caver through the underground route without aggravating the leg problem. Certain areas required support. Others needed controlled lifts or specific positioning. The team maintained steady progress. Both operations extended into lengthy underground efforts. In one cave, advancement relied on freeing the wedged caver and then guiding him back through the narrow system. In the other, success depended on shielding the leg injury amid uneven terrain. Neither group had an easy exit. They completed one segment before facing the next. This structure caused the hours to add up. The rescues operated concurrently. In one area, teams brought out the caver freed from the squeeze. In another, they moved the person with the leg injury. Surface Command tracked both. Teams entered and exited. Equipment went to priority spots. Volunteers rotated duties. The day became an uncommon case where one rescue organization handled two underground emergencies simultaneously. The first rescue required about 12 hours. The trapped caver reached the surface safely. The second took more than 7 hours. The injured caver also exited safely. Both individuals survived. One had been held by the rock formation, the other by the leg injury. Two distinct underground rescues. Over 40 volunteers took part on the same day under the Mendip Hills. The Mendip Hills caves consist of limestone that forms complex networks. These systems include many constrictions where movement is limited to specific body orientations. Training for such environments emphasizes controlled breathing, precise positioning, and avoidance of panic. Rescue teams train extensively in similar conditions to handle real calls efficiently. Equipment such as stretchers adapted for tight spaces, communication lines, and medical kits designed for confined areas played key roles. Volunteers come from various backgrounds but share expertise in caving techniques. In the squeeze incident, the exact alignment of shoulders and hips often determines success or failure in passing a section. Small changes in body angle or rock contact points can make the difference. The team likely monitored vital signs continuously and ensured hydration where possible during the wait. For the leg injury case, stabilization involved splinting or padding to prevent further damage during drags and lifts. Underground movement with an injury requires coordination among multiple people to distribute weight and maintain stability. Command structure for multiple incidents involves clear role assignments. One group handles logistics above ground while underground teams focus on direct aid. Standby support from neighboring groups like Gloucester ensures coverage if conditions worsen or additional needs arise. Local communities often provide refreshments and facilities aiding the sustained effort. After operations, Teams clean and restock gear for future readiness. These events highlight preparation. Both groups had followed emergency protocols, which shortened response times and improved outcomes. CAVERS in the Mendips benefit from local knowledge of the terrain. The limestone bedrock creates features like solutional passages that can tighten unexpectedly. Water flow adds mud and slipperiness, increasing risks. Rescues demonstrate the value of organized volunteer networks dedicated to caver safety. The coordinated response prevented escalation. Careful techniques avoided complications such as exhaustion turning into hypothermia or minor injuries becoming severe. Both cavers received post-rescue checks. The incidents underscore that even experienced individuals can encounter problems in demanding environments. Shared learning from such days improves future practices across cave rescue organizations. Mendip Cave Rescue maintains readiness for these specialized calls. Their work relies on community support and member dedication. The two rescues on March 22, 2026, represent a significant but successful test of that system. The cavers involved can potentially return to underground exploration with added caution and appreciation for the support network. On July 15, 2016, 4 teenage boys gathered in the peaceful Wiltshire countryside near Hawthorne. Their attention stayed fixed on phone screens instead of the landscape. They played Pokemon Go, the augmented reality game released in the UK a few weeks prior. The title achieved massive popularity by sending players outdoors into parks, streets, and historic sites to find virtual creatures. In this case, the app directed the boys toward a dark hillside opening that appeared as a simple hole in the ground. It suggested rare Pokemon might spawn inside. The teenagers, aged 16 and 17, carried no caving gear such as proper lights, ropes, helmets, or maps. They used only their smartphones with batteries already running down. Their confidence came from typical teenage belief that the outing posed no real risk. They expected a quick entry and exit, much like caves in the classic Pokemon video games on Game Boy, where players navigated short routes and used moves or items to escape if needed. Real underground environments differ significantly from game mechanics. The site they entered is known as the Box Mines, also called the Box Quarry. This abandoned limestone mine system ranks among the most extensive and dangerous in England. It consists of man-made tunnels covering roughly 72 square miles. That area equals a small city in scale, yet it contains only passages instead of surface structures. The network includes thousands of corridors carved through gray limestone. These branch repeatedly, with junctions appearing every few hundred feet. Each junction often presents 3 or 4 identical options that confuse navigation. The layout creates endless repetition where sections look alike. Experienced cavers approach the box mines with full caution. They bring redundant lighting, detailed maps, GPS equipment, and knowledge built from repeated visits. Past incidents include deaths and cases where people stayed lost for days before extraction by specialized teams. The boys possessed none of this background and treated the entrance as the start of a casual adventure. The first part of the passage felt easy to manage. The initial 100 feet or so seemed harmless and even ordinary. They continued forward, choosing turns at junctions based on the game interface. The phone still worked and indicated potential finds a bit farther ahead. Decisions to proceed appeared low risk because each new section looked walkable and familiar enough for return travel. This gradual process defines how disorientation develops in such places. No single dramatic error occurs. Instead, dozens of small choices build a route too intricate to reverse accurately. The teenagers passed the point of easy exploration without noticing. They kept advancing deeper into the labyrinth that erased their sense of direction. After an hour or less, one suggested returning. At that stage, confusion set in. None could confirm the correct path back. Passages resembled each other completely. Junctions triggered uncertain memories about prior left or right turns. Chambers looked like others already visited. They realized they were fully lost in the 72-square-mile underground complex, approximately 100 feet below the surface. Their voices could not reach the outside world. Summer daylight above felt distant. The phones that guided them in now provided limited help. Thick rock blocked all cell signals. The devices functioned as flashlights and still ran the Pokemon Go app, but calls or texts to family or authorities failed. The boys started crawling through passages in hopes of finding a recognizable feature. The mines reward neither hope nor random luck. Every choice opened more branches. Worst-case thoughts emerged, including hypothermia from the steady chill, complete darkness if batteries died, or endless wandering until exhaustion. They continued moving rather than stop. Each turn carried the chance of moving farther from safety. The mental strain of underground entrapment involves more than physical threats. It includes the awareness of being in an environment unsuited for humans, with no natural light or easy exit. Hours accumulated in this state. They navigated turn after turn and passage after passage. Eventually, they entered a noticeably different space. This chamber had a higher ceiling and wider walls compared to the repetitive tunnels. Known as the Cathedral, it stands as one of the few distinctive landmarks in the vast system. In that location, one phone with a nearly depleted battery picked up a faint, intermittent cellular signal. The group called emergency services right away. They explained they were lost in the box mines around 100 feet underground and lacked any specific position details. The Dorset and Wiltshire Fire and Rescue Service took the call and recognized the emergency. 4 inexperienced teenagers trapped in a complex mine network without equipment required immediate action. Officials contacted local mine experts who had mapped and explored the box system over many years. These specialists understood the layout in ways that simplified navigation through the maze. Without them, locating the boys across thousands of similar passages would have been extremely difficult. The rescue effort formed quickly. Teams gathered water supplies and radio gear for delivery once the area was identified. Expert-guided search parties entered the mines. They moved with knowledge of junctions and routes that the teenagers could never have followed independently. The rescuers reached the cathedral chamber where the boys waited. The 4 were cold, exhausted, and scared, but physically okay. Extraction began along established paths. The journey to the surface took considerable time, even with guidance. The boys followed closely through sections they had not mapped. They finally stepped into late afternoon sunlight after the extended underground period. The teenagers looked glum and embarrassed. Their simple Pokemon search had triggered a large-scale response involving fire crews, mine specialists, and coordinators. The box mines originated as 19th-century limestone quarries supplying bathstone for construction across Britain. The workings expanded into a multi-level network with some flooded lower sections and unstable areas. The boys stayed in drier upper passages. Average temperatures hover around 10 to 12 degrees Celsius with high humidity, which accelerates fatigue and disorientation. The repetitive design challenges spatial memory even for veterans. The cathedral chamber's size and slight elevation changes likely enabled the weak signal breakthrough. Rescue teams coordinated via radios after closing in. The full operation spanned several hours from initial contact to surface arrival. Medical checks followed for exposure and dehydration risks. No major injuries resulted. Later statements from the group indicated the Pokemon Go element was part of a broader exploration rather than the sole reason for entry. The story gained wide coverage as an example of the game's early unintended consequences. During the 2016 summer launch period, players encountered various hazards including traffic accidents and trespassing issues. This underground case highlighted specific dangers of abandoned industrial sites. Mine owners issued stronger warnings afterward. Access points received additional barriers and signs. Authorities encouraged research and preparation before entering caves or ruins. Similar large mine systems exist elsewhere, but the box complex stands out for its scale and history of incidents. The event prompted talks on app features that could include safety alerts for sensitive locations. The four boys returned home without legal issues, but with public attention on their experience. The rescue demonstrated effective coordination between fire services and specialized local knowledge. It also served as a reminder of the gap between digital game adventures and actual physical risks in complex environments. No Pokemon were caught during their time in the mines. The phones displayed the game throughout, but yielded no successes in that setting. The incident remains a documented case from the Pokemon Go phenomenon's first months in the UK. November 23, 2006, marked Thanksgiving morning in Bluefield, West Virginia. While most families stayed indoors preparing holiday meals in warming kitchens, Leslie Lubowski and Tom Karos loaded caving equipment into their truck. They brought along 17-year-old Kylan Malabone, who had never entered a cave before. This trip was meant to be her introduction to caving in a controlled, low-risk setting. The group selected Clay Cave for the outing. This cave system sits near the surface and ranks as relatively small and straightforward compared to more complex West Virginia caves. It does not involve advanced vertical rope techniques or extended underground travel. Experienced locals often used it to ease newcomers into the environment. Leslie had visited before and knew the layout, including where passages narrowed and where they widened again. No one anticipated any complications from what looked like a short, beginner-oriented trip. They arrived at the entrance before noon. After checking headlamps, putting on gloves, and organizing basic gear, they entered one by one, leaving the November daylight behind. The initial section consisted of a low passage that required careful crawling. Kaelin advanced slowly, focusing on each hand and foot placement as beginners typically do. The confined space demanded a different kind of movement, crawling, bracing, and twisting the body to fit through rock formations. Headlamps provided only narrow beams of light ahead. Leslie and Tom remained nearby to offer guidance. For the first part of the trip, everything followed the expected pattern of a simple introductory cave visit. Roughly 50 feet inside the entrance, however, the passage shifted to a cannoning section. Cavers use this term for moving down and sideways through narrow vertical slots by pressing against opposing walls for support and control. Skilled cavers perform this maneuver routinely, knowing how to distribute weight, position feet, and maintain balance in awkward angles. For a first-time visitor like Kylan, the technique felt unfamiliar. The close walls, the downward angle, and the need for precise footing created challenges. She lost her grip and slipped a short distance into a lower part of the slot. The movement stopped abruptly when her body became wedged. A sloping wall pressed against one side of her, while a small rock spur protruded from the opposite wall, blocking the clearance needed to shift or rotate. The spur was minor in size and would not have drawn attention under ordinary conditions. In this exact position, combined with the cave's contours, It pinned her firmly in place. Kylan sustained no major injuries. She could breathe normally and speak clearly throughout the ordeal. Leslie and Tom immediately worked to free her in the tight confines illuminated by their headlamps. They tested options for pulling her upward, shifting her sideways, or adjusting her orientation. But the rock formation held too securely. After assessing the situation, Tom exited the cave to contact emergency services via 911. Bluefield area fire and rescue teams responded. Cave rescues fall outside routine calls for most local departments, yet the crew reached the site and moved efficiently. Inside the passage, they identified the protruding rock spur as the primary obstacle. Removing part of it offered the clearest path forward. Using a hammer and chisel, rescuers began chipping away at the formation by hand. The work proceeded slowly due to the extremely limited space. Every strike required precision because Kylan lay directly adjacent to the area being altered. Crew members rotated shifts to manage fatigue and discomfort in the cramped environment. Rescuers also addressed Kylan's clothing. Extra layers added bulk that reduced available clearance in the slot. In tight cave passages, even small differences in body profile can determine success in extraction. They carefully cut away non-essential fabric to minimize her dimensions without causing additional discomfort. Leslie and Tom contributed actively during the efforts. Their familiarity with the cave and the original party helped coordinate movements where space allowed little room for error. The combined team continued the methodical chiseling until sufficient material had been removed from the spur. With the obstruction reduced, rescuers attempted extraction again. Kylan's body shifted upward as the slot released its hold. She emerged from the narrow section into a wider area above. After several hours confined in the passage, Kylan stood under her own power. She had not suffered serious harm and walked out of Clay Cave to the surface on her own. The rescue concluded while Thanksgiving activities continued outside. Local television station WVVA Channel 6 covered the event that evening, highlighting the holiday timing, the teenagers' entrapment, and the successful response by emergency crews. A few days later, on November 26, Leslie Lubowski submitted an official incident report. She described the event calmly and noted that a more seasoned caver might have navigated the same section without becoming stuck. Even if temporary entrapment occurred, an experienced person could often self-adjust and work free through body positioning techniques. Leslie suggested the full emergency mobilization might not have been required. She proposed that contacting another knowledgeable local caver equipped with basic tools could have resolved the issue more quietly by addressing the rock spur directly. The incident drew attention because of its circumstances. Clay Cave was selected precisely for its accessibility and low perceived difficulty. Kylan remained only about 50 feet from the entrance. She stayed conscious and communicative the entire time. No deep navigation or technical challenges were involved. Yet the combination of a first-time visitor, the specific slot geometry, and the small rock feature created a situation that demanded outside assistance and several hours of work. According to records in the National Speleological Society's American Caving Accidents 2006 report, the event was classified as an aid incident with no injury. It involved Kylan Malabone, with spelling variations in accounts, Leslie Lubokrinsky, and Tom Karos. The report underscores how even short distances in familiar caves can present unexpected challenges for beginners. Caving requires attention to body mechanics in constrictions, proper clothing choices for minimal bulk, and recognition of when experience levels match the terrain. This case illustrates broader principles in caving safety. Novices benefit from gradual exposure under close supervision, but certain passages demand practice techniques regardless of overall cave difficulty. Rock removal in rescues remains a last resort due to the precision needed near a trapped person. The event also highlights the value of local caver networks who understand site-specific features and can sometimes provide faster, targeted help before formal emergency systems activate. In the years since, discussions in caving communities have referenced this Thanksgiving incident as a reminder that easy caves still require respect. Proper preparation, realistic assessment of personal skills, and contingency planning form essential parts of any underground trip. Kaelin's experience ended safely, but it offered clear lessons on the importance of matching participants to the environment and maintaining awareness even close to the surface. The details continue to inform how groups introduce new members to caving while emphasizing caution in narrow features. The holiday context added another layer. Families across the region gathered for meals while rescue operations unfolded underground. The contrast between normal Thanksgiving routines and the focused efforts inside clay caves stood out in local reporting. Yet the outcome allowed everyone to return home without lasting harm, reinforcing that timely response and methodical problem solving can overcome unexpected entrapments in cave environments. Cavers today often review such accounts to refine techniques for tight passages. Practices include testing body positioning in advance, wearing form-fitting layers, and carrying basic hand tools when appropriate for a group. The clay cave event remains part of the collected safety knowledge within the speleological community, serving as a practical example rather than a dramatic outlier. It shows how small geological details in otherwise manageable systems can combine with inexperience to create prolonged situations. Understanding these dynamics helps future trips proceed more smoothly for everyone involved. On the morning of July 30th, 1978, 3 men entered the underwater passages of Peacock Slough in Florida. None returned alive. The divers were Tim Tomlinson, age 26, Mike Stevens, age 21, and Steve Romero, a first lieutenant in the United States Marine Corps. All 3 were young, with careers and futures ahead of them. They shared a strong interest in scuba diving and had prepared with standard equipment for the outing. The site forms part of the larger Peacock Springs Cave System in Suwannee County, one of the most extensive underwater cave networks in the continental United States. Explorers first documented dives there in the late 1950s. By the 1970s, teams had mapped thousands of feet of passages through limestone formations fed by the Floridan aquifer. The system includes multiple springs and sinks, with Peacock Slough known for its silty bottom and complex tunnels. The area has drawn cave divers for decades due to its clear waters in some sections, but it also carries a record of accidents linked to poor visibility and narrow restrictions. The 3 men carried scuba gear and followed a basic dive plan. They secured a guideline, a rope anchored at the entrance and extended about 200 feet, or 61 meters, into the main passage. In cave diving, such a line provides a continuous physical reference to the exit. It allows divers to navigate back even when conditions change rapidly. This practice ranks among the core safety standards in the field. The men had the line in place and an apparent route to open water. They continued swimming past the end of that guideline. At some stage during the dive, the group moved beyond the 200-foot mark deeper into the Peacock Slough system without maintaining the physical link to the entrance. That decision marked the start of the sequence that led to the outcome. Peacock Slough contains passages where fine sediment covers the floors. This material builds up over long periods and stirs easily. A fin kick or contact with the bottom can send clouds of silt into the water. Visibility drops from several feet to zero within seconds. In open water, such a loss creates confusion. Inside a flooded cave beyond a guideline, in total darkness, it removes all orientation. Divers lose sight of walls, the bottom, the ceiling, and any direction markers. The passage turns into an environment without visual cues. The three men encountered this silt disturbance at some point past their line. The water became opaque. They could no longer determine forward from back. Disorientation in such conditions occurs quickly. Every direction appears the same. Each movement risks further stirring sediment or wasting air. Air supply decreases with every breath, regardless of progress. No time exists to stop and reassess fully. Recovery records indicate the men kept moving and searching for an exit until their air ran out. They drowned at a depth of about 80 feet or 24 meters, roughly 250 feet or 76 meters into the cave system. Divers later located the bodies only 15 feet, less than 5 meters, beyond the end of the guideline they had placed. In normal conditions, 15 feet equals the width of a small room or a short walk. In zero visibility water inside a restricted passage with depleting air, that distance proved unreachable. The guideline remained in position. The men died within arm's reach of the rope that connected to safety and the surface. This proximity highlights the effects of complete loss of visibility. No landmarks exist. Touch becomes the primary sense, but panic and low air limit systematic search. Cave diving operates with narrow safety margins measured in distance, time, and training adherence. The Peacock Springs system features extensive mapped passages exceeding 30,000 feet in total by later surveys. Sections vary in silt content, with some tunnels acting as siphons that pull water inward. Earlier exploration by figures such as Sheck Exley and others in the 1960s and 1970s helped document these risks. The 1978 incident occurred in an area known for silt and posted with warnings against diving in certain spots at the time. Similar events in Florida caves have shown that open water certification alone does not prepare divers for overhead environments where exit routes can vanish. Standard cave diving protocols emphasize several rules. One requires that divers never proceed beyond the end of a fixed line without extending it or using additional reels. Another stresses staying within training limits. Silt-out procedures include maintaining contact with the line, using touch to follow it, and conserving gas through controlled breathing. The men had set a line, but extended their dive past its security. They lacked the specialized cave training that addresses these exact failures. Tim Tomlinson worked in his 20s with plans for the future. Mike Stevens, at 21, brought youthful energy to the activity. Steve Romero had served as a Marine officer and approached the dive with discipline. On that July Sunday, the group entered the water with enthusiasm common among those drawn to underwater exploration. They did not emerge. Recovery teams reached the site and found the bodies close to the line in the dark passage. The event added to the history of challenges at Peacock Springs. The park, later renamed West Skiles Peacock Springs State Park, in honor of a prominent cave diver and filmmaker who advocated for the area, continues to attract certified cave divers. Access requires proof of certification, and many sections carry permanent warnings. The incident demonstrates core aspects of cave diving safety. Guidelines serve as the primary navigation tool in restricted visibility. Training from organizations focused on cave environments teaches gas management, line protocols, and emergency responses. Florida's karst geology creates springs and caves with varying flow and sediment. Over 600 cave diving fatalities have occurred worldwide, with many tied to exceeding experience levels or losing orientation in silt. In this case, the three men swam 15 feet past their prepared exit reference. That short span separated them from recovery. The environment offered no second chances once visibility collapsed and air diminished. Post-incident reviews in the diving community reinforced the absolute requirement to treat the guideline as the limit of penetration unless properly extended. Peacock Slough and the broader system remain sites for careful exploration today. Divers map additional passages using advanced techniques, but the fundamental risks of silt, darkness, and overhead rock persist. The 1978 event stands as a clear example of how preparation meets environmental limits. The men carried equipment and a partial plan, yet the decision to go beyond the line removed their margin. Their bodies were recovered from a location that, under different conditions, might have allowed a return to the surface. The cave system connects to the regional aquifer and supports unique hydrology. Water flows through limestone channels shaped over millennia. Sediment layers reflect long-term deposition. These features create the conditions that turned a routine dive into a fatal one for the group. Training evolution since the 1970s has included better emphasis on conservative penetration distances and redundant systems. On July 30, 1978, Tim Tomlinson, Mike Stevens, and Steve Romero entered Peacock Slough and did not return. The guideline ended 15 feet before their final positions. The rope that could have guided them out stayed in place while conditions overwhelmed their ability to locate it. This distance, trivial above water, defined the boundary in the cave. The event underscores the discipline required for safe cave diving in silty systems like those in North Florida. On Monday, September 2, 1991, 3 cavers entered Clarksville Cave located in Albany County, New York. The individuals were Gary Lowell, Mark McNiff, and Beverly Schwartz, who was 30 years old at the time. Lowell and McNiff brought extensive years of caving expertise with them. Schwartz possessed around 2 years of experience in caving and had participated in an NCRC workshop during the summer. This outing was not for beginners exploring unknown territory. The team had a clear objective based on a prior trip where they identified a dig site showing signs of airflow near the Twinkle Room in the ward section of the cave. Their plan involved returning to that location to advance the digging efforts. The route led them into sections of the cave that grew progressively more confined. The dig site sat at the end of a passage running north from the Twinkle Room for approximately 30 feet. For much of this distance, the passage measured only about 3 feet in width and 18 inches in height. This narrowness prevented 2 people from passing one another. As a result, the person working at the dig operated alone while the others remained behind in waiting positions. Closer to the end, the crawlway presented additional challenges with a 90-degree bend to the right, followed by a downward slope of about 20 degrees over the final 10 feet. This section proved too restrictive to allow a person to turn around easily. Anyone who entered needed to recognize that reversing direction by backing out represented the primary exit method. The cave environment remained damp and cold with temperatures around 45 degrees Fahrenheit. To prevent anyone from becoming overly chilled during the work, the group rotated digging duties among themselves. A slight breeze moved through the dig passage, which had drawn their interest initially. In caving, airflow often indicates the possibility of continuing passageways beyond current obstructions, motivating explorers to push through uncomfortable areas. Schwartz took the third turn at the dig. She worked at the site for some time while positioned in a very confined space with minimal room around her body. In passages only 18 inches high, physical size plays a critical role. It affects how hips navigate restrictions, chest expansion for breathing, shoulder alignment through bends, and the ability to adjust leg positions or shift sides. Schwartz carried extra weight and lacked peak physical conditioning. These factors created significant disadvantages in such a low crawlway. Even moderate additional body mass could eliminate the small clearances available. Around 4 p.m., Schwartz completed her digging shift and attempted to back out of the passage. At this point, the situation became critical. She found herself unable to move her hips past a tight spot. The issue stemmed not from overall depth in the cave or route complexity, but from the passage shape and her body dimensions no longer aligning properly in the reverse direction. She had entered the dig area successfully, but exiting required hips to clear the constriction from a different orientation. Tired and cold while moving backward in a tunnel too low for repositioning, her companions offered assistance. Over the next hour and a half, Schwartz tried repeatedly to back through the area. They examined possible causes that might worsen the entrapment. Clothing could be bunching in the tight spaces and adding bulk around hips and legs. One companion assisted in removing her boots, nylon coveralls, and polar fleece thermal bottoms. Schwartz also took off her polar fleece top, remaining in a polypropylene layer. Cavers sometimes use this approach in squeezes, where a constriction is marginally too tight. Shedding layers can provide the minimal extra space needed for passage. However, this strategy failed to resolve the problem. Despite the removed outer clothing, Schwartz remained unable to back out. Her body weight and shape continued to hold her at the hips. The removal introduced additional risk because the cave stayed at 45 degrees Fahrenheit and damp. Protective clothing that maintained body heat had been set aside in an attempt to slim down her profile. This left her more vulnerable to the cold during a period when movement was restricted. After unsuccessful attempts to reverse through the tight spot, Schwartz shifted forward slightly and tried turning around. She hoped that passing the constriction head first might prove easier. Within the narrow confines, she worked to adjust her position and find better angles for her hips and shoulders. This effort also did not succeed. At approximately 5:50 p.m., while attempting the turn, her right foot became lodged in a vertical crack between two rocks. The circumstances grew more difficult immediately. Previously, the primary obstacle involved hips clearing the constriction. Now, an additional foot entrapment complicated matters. She lay on her left side, with her back pressed against the left wall and her right shoulder positioned about 1 inch from the ceiling. Her right leg extended fully between her torso and the right wall, while the left leg remained in a normal extended position. This orientation offered very poor options for self-rescue as the passage pinned her body. Hips stayed blocked by the tight area, and the foot remained fixed separately in the crack. Lauo and McNiff evaluated the developing situation and concluded that external assistance was necessary. McNiff remained with Schwartz, while Lauo made his way out of the cave. McNiff used a garbage bag to cover her and held her leg to share body warmth as cold exposure intensified as a serious concern. Lauo exited efficiently, taking roughly 12 minutes to reach the surface. At a nearby convenience store, he attempted to contact the rescue number noted inside his helmet. The phone declined his credit card. Store staff directed him toward a local caver contact, which helped initiate the formal rescue response. Lauo obtained hot coffee and candy bars before returning to the site. Upon his return, Schwartz showed signs of deterioration. She shivered intensely and could neither move nor speak effectively. Since her head remained out of direct reach, Lauo positioned the hot coffee container against her abdomen and took a turn providing physical warmth through contact. As additional rescuers arrived at the scene, McNiff moved toward the entrance to request tubing for delivering hot drinks. He also investigated a very small alternate entrance located only 50 feet from the twinkle room. This could serve for better access and allow running wires from a generator for heating purposes. An emergency medical technician reached the location carrying a scissors jack along with space blankets and a hot drink. The team employed the scissors jack to dislodge her foot from the rock crack. Freeing the foot addressed one issue, but left the main body entrapment intact at the hip constriction. Rescuers attempted to widen the tight passage section using a pneumatic hammer. Limited workspace allowed only one rescuer to work directly with the victim at any moment. Other team members concentrated on preventing her medical condition from declining further. Communication lines and a physician arrived on scene. Power cables extended into the cave to support equipment. The group administered glucose solution to Schwartz. They applied targeted heat through a lamp and a hairdryer. The hairdryer malfunctioned shortly after use, but the heater operated effectively when positioned near her back. A space blanket helped direct and reflect the warmth toward her body. After stabilizing her core temperature and overall condition, the rescue focused on extraction methods. The approach avoided aggressive pulling that might cause injury or tighten the entrapment. Instead, rescuers carefully removed gravel and mud material from underneath her body. This created additional room in the areas previously restricted by the cave floor. With the newly available space, her hips and leg gained the ability to shift positions. The clearance eventually allowed pulling her back sufficiently to free the affected leg. Supported by the team, she crawled forward to reach the twinkle room. From there, assistance continued to the lake room. At that point, she was secured into a sked stretcher for the remainder of the evacuation. The group carried her out of the cave system. She emerged at the entrance around 3:40 a.m. on Tuesday, September 3. After approximately 8 hours of entrapment, her core body temperature measured 95 degrees Fahrenheit. This reading indicated the significant risk of hypothermia that the cold cave conditions had presented throughout the ordeal. Caves maintain cool, damp conditions that increase hypothermia risk during immobility. Rescue protocols emphasize heat retention. The coordinated response helped avoid a worse result from the entrapment and exposure. March 5, 2005, began as a routine day for a caver at Devil's Den Cave in Arkansas. The weather was clear with crisp air. Deep underground, an entrapment unfolded in one of the cave's narrow passages. The man entered the cave that morning with his headlamp, helmet, and gear based on prior experience in underground systems. He understood the common risks of tight spaces, disorientation, and rock hazards. Preparation helps, but it has limits against the natural formations shaped over time. He spent hours moving through the cave network. Some tunnels allowed upright walking. Others required crouching, crawling, or squeezing on his belly. The passages formed from limestone erosion by water over millions of years. Underground temperatures stayed steady, cool, and damp. Water dripped from stalactites, with sounds echoing in the chambers. His breath showed as condensation in the headlamp beam. Conditions remained normal until he reached an unfamiliar passage. The entrance measured about 2 feet high and 3 feet wide. The headlamp light faded into darkness ahead. It appeared to continue, possibly toward a larger area. He chose to proceed instead of turning around. He lay on his stomach and crawled forward, pushing with elbows and knees. The rock pressed on his back and chest, restricting breaths to shallow ones. This felt standard for such environments, where cavers manage breathing to avoid panic from the surrounding stone mass. The tunnel ran straight for roughly 15 feet. The walls narrowed a bit more, but he continued. His headlamp contacted the ceiling, dislodging dust and small fragments. He cleared his eyes and moved ahead. Turning back was no longer possible due to the width. Then the passage shifted direction. It made a sharp 90-degree angle, dropping vertically and bending right in an L shape. He stopped at the corner and directed his light into the vertical section. It looked very constricted, but he decided it was doable. He pushed his head and shoulders into the vertical part with his upper body against the floor. To pass the L bend, he rotated his torso. His chest cleared, followed by his stomach against the corner. Resistance hit at that point. The tunnel dimensions did not align with his body shape. He tried advancing, but his legs stayed in the horizontal section, angled upward and back. His torso entered the vertical shaft face down. At the waist, his body formed a 90-degree twist. His spine bent in an unnatural position. He lay flat on his stomach while his knees pointed as if standing. The configuration locked him in place. Forward movement wedged him tighter. Backward pull lacked leverage from his leg position. The rock held him firmly at the intersection. Panic followed right away. Breathing sped up and shallowed, worsening the confinement. Each breath expanded his ribs against stone. His heart rate increased. The headlamp shook with head movements, creating shifting shadows. He worked to regain control, but the position offered no clear escape. His body remained twisted in a way that blocked normal motion. Arms could not reach back effectively. Legs found no solid purchase. Time lost meaning during the hours in place. Muscles ached from the strain. The twisted torso complicated breathing further. The cave's weight seemed to increase overhead. He stayed alone deep underground in a geometrically difficult spot. Even a call for help might have seemed unbelievable to outsiders. Surface observers noted his vehicle remained in the parking area after several hours. Park rangers received alerts about a possible missing person. They knew the cave's layout and the challenges of its tight sections. Rangers entered the system, calling out as they advanced through passages. The trap man heard the distant voices and tried to signal. The rangers followed probable routes. They navigated the squeezes with their own lights. One spotted the narrow horizontal tunnel. Peering inside revealed legs with knees bent upward in the passage. The rest of the body extended into the vertical section, twisted at the intersection. A cave rescue team was contacted for specialized support. The rangers recognized the need for immediate action due to labored breathing and potential injury from the position. The extraction required careful steps in the limited space. They could not yank him free. They assessed the exact body alignment by reaching in. They started with the legs, creating room to adjust. They shifted the lower body inch by inch to reverse the twist. The man felt pain during these manipulations in the tight area. The rangers applied knowledge of cave structures and human body mechanics. Through precise movements, determination, and adjustment, they reversed his path into the bend. They straightened his legs and untwisted his torso gradually. They pulled him back through the L-shaped section. Once in a wider chamber, he processed the events. His body showed aches and tremors from the prolonged strain, but he had freedom. Rangers guided him out through the system to the surface. The full cave rescue team reached the site after the extraction finished. Rangers had completed the operation. The man learned about cave limits, body mechanics under pressure, and how roots can lead to entrapment. Official records noted a caver became stuck in a tight passage. Rangers freed him without major injury before the main team arrived. Details stayed minimal. Devil's Den Cave, located in Arkansas, features limestone passages with varying widths. It has seen multiple stuck incidents over years. including one on this date listed in caving accident summaries as requiring aid but resulting in no injury. Other events there involved narrow crevices, such as a 2001 case with a teenager in Satan's Maze section who wedged sideways in a 12-inch wide space for hours before grease and team efforts allowed escape. CAVERS train for these scenarios, emphasizing backup plans, communication, and knowing when to retreat. The specific L-shaped passage remains part of the system. It serves as a natural formation that highlights risks in unexplored routes. Explorers continue to visit, but incidents underscore the value of experience paired with caution in such environments. The cave system includes larger chambers alongside constrictions formed by water erosion. Constant cool temperatures around 50-60 degrees Fahrenheit preserve the damp conditions. Headlamps provide the only light, making depth perception difficult in turns. Rescue operations in caves like this often combine local knowledge with technical gear for stretchers or hauling in vertical sections. In this case, the quick response prevented escalation. The man exited under his own power after recovery in the wider area. This outcome differed from cases where entrapment led to longer operations or fatalities elsewhere, such as in other U.S. caves with similar tight features. Reports from the National Speleological Society track these events to improve safety practices. CAVERS now stress mapping, group travel in complex areas, and awareness of body positioning in bends. The March 5 event ended with the individual safe, reinforcing lessons on preparation and the physical constraints of underground navigation. Rangers' familiarity with the site proved key to the successful extraction sequence. The cave stays accessible for those equipped to handle its challenges.